Hi, I'm Angie, and today I'm making triple chocolate Valentine's brownies. So to start, I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees, and I've lined a 9x13 pan with foil, and I just sprayed it really lightly. This is a two-part recipe. We're going to make a crust, and then we're going to make the brownie part to go on top. I'm starting with 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. It's not sifted, it's just measured into the bowl. And I've got a 1/4 cup of sugar, regular granulated sugar. Just combine that. And I've got 1/2 cup of cold butter that's cut in chunks. And I'm just going to use this pastry blender to cut the butter into the flour and the sugar. You just want it to be crumbly. And when the butter gets stuck, you can just use a knife to scrape it off. A pastry blender is really useful when you're making pie crust and other types of crust. But if you don't have one, you can certainly do this with your hands. You just want to get in there and kind of pick up the flour and the butter and squeeze, and then quickly drop it. You don't want to cream it together, but you want to incorporate the butter into the flour in kind of crumbly chunks. And when you can kind of feel it come together and sort of stick together, that's when you know it's done. Okay, so now the crust can be pressed into the bottom of the prepared pan. And we're going to bake this at 350 for 15 minutes. Okay, so the crust is all pressed into the bottom of the pan, and I'll put this in the oven for 15 minutes, and then we'll continue on with the recipe. Okay, it's been 15 minutes, and the crust is golden brown and baked. Now, actually, I told you to put 1 1/4 cups flour in the base, and the recipe did not say that the flour amount was divided. So when you make the crust, actually just use 1 cup of flour, and the extra 1/4 cup flour is going to be part of our mix here. Now it doesn't really matter, it's not spoiled or anything, and it looks fine. It's just going to be a little too much flour in there. Okay, so in another bowl, I've got 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. I just did this in advance and put it in the bowl because it takes forever to scrape that stuff out, and you need to use a rubber scraper and scrape and scrape and scrape to get it all out. And now I'm going to beat in 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1 egg, a 1/4 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm just going to beat that with an electric mixer. You can of course just use a spoon or a whisk. I'm going to stir in 8 ounces of milk chocolate that's cut in chunks. Now the recipe calls for an 8-ounce chocolate bar, milk chocolate bar, but I'm just using the chocolate I had, which was the Hershey's Nuggets, and I just split them into about 3 pieces each. So you just need 8 ounces of very chunky chocolate. I'm just going to stir that in by hand. I also threw a few milk chocolate chips in there just to make up the difference. Stir that in. You can also add in 3/4 cup of nuts. That would be really nice too, if you like nuts in your brownies. So now I'll spread this over the baked crust. And I'm going to bake this at the 350 for another 20 minutes. Okay, so I'll pop this in the oven and I'll show it to you when it's done. Okay, it's been 20 minutes and the brownies are done. You want to let them cool completely in the pan, and then you can use the foil to lift them out. You can cut them into bars, or you can use cookie cutters like hearts and cut them into shapes. And if you want, you can decorate the top with some white drizzled icing. So thanks for watching, and I hope you try some triple chocolate Valentine's brownies.